Joe Tex and I Gotcha from the soundtrack of Reservoir Dogs, a new film by Quinten Tarranito, which is opening in Canada through Famous Players in the middle of October, and the director and one of the stars of the film, Quinten Tarantino, is my guest. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love this film, and I thought that it was incredibly, the opening scene is a bunch of guys sitting around in a restaurant talking about, among other things, Madonna's songs. And I had no idea what the movie was going to be about when I sat down, because at the film festival, you go into a screening and you're sitting down before, you don't really know what you're seeing at all.
Right, exactly.
Title of the film. And so I'm watching this really amusing conversation between 8 or 9 guys, and lively and funny. And I don't know what city they're in. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know anything about them. And the next thing I know, one of them's bleeding to death on white vinyl in the backseat of a car.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an extraordinary shift. And the tone of the film seems to me one of the most remarkable things, one of the many remarkable things about it.
Well, it's funny because, thanks a bunch, and your response to it. I mean, one of the things that I was trying to do in that opening scene, and I tried to do it constantly throughout the movie, is, these guys are professional, they're career criminals, they're professional crooks. And one of the things I wanted to do on it was just not like say, okay, you're you, or you, the audience, you're you, and you have your life. Okay, and these guys are different. They're like these crooks. No, they have this, they're human beings. All right. They talk about, all the things that we all talk about. They how much to tip, how much or how little. So they talk about all the cultural references that we all have. That's one thing that we all share. We all have talked about McDonald's, Madonna.
70s music.
70s music. It's like that's a common thing that we all share. We all have an opinion about it, one way or the other, and so do these guys. All right, and that's the thing that I think draws the humor out of the movie, is the fact that you can actually kind of recognize. It gives them a heartbeat as opposed to just like the bad guys or the villains.
They're criminals, but that's their job.
Right, exactly.
And outside of that, they have a life.
Well, that's the thing that's funny to me, is the fact that a very big thing that they always talk about in the movie is professionalism. All right, like this is a profession. Well, to them, it is a profession. All right, they have chosen this profession, and to them, it's a craft. Like being a carpenter or being a painter or a postman or something. And it has certain rules. In fact, it has stronger rules. All right, than another profession. But in a way, it's just kind of a way to a smokescreen to convince themselves that it is a profession, that it is like a choice of labor that they could choose, as opposed to just taking a gun in their hand and going out to trying to take somebody's money from them.
Ignoring the morality, the moral problem of the whole thing.
Exactly.
But the other thing about this film is that you wrote the script. You're the screenplay writer, and to me, I thought that's the keystone of the whole film right there. And the fact that you did write a script as magnificent as this, and I'm going to stop flattering you after a while, okay? But is probably what allowed you to put together the ensemble cast that includes Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, great people,
exactly.
and allowed you to scale up your expectations for the film as well. I mean, is the script what sold this?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's for sure. Okay, it was the script that made the people want to make the movie. It was the script that gave the company that made the movie, because I had never directed anything before. I didn't have any short films or nothing. All right, it was partly the script that gave them the confidence for me as a director, because I might show up, I might not know what I'm doing, I might be an idiot. All right, but I did write the script. I at least understand the material. You know what I mean? And
you were trained as an actor. You went to school for 8 years to learn how to act.
Yeah.
Where'd you learn how to write?
Well, it's funny because I never considered myself a writer, but I always considered myself a director who writes stuff for himself to do. But where I first started writing is in acting classes. All right, writing scenes for myself to do. Actually, the way I really started was I'd be in an acting class, and I'd go see a movie, and I'd see a scene like, wow, I'd like to do that in class. And I've got a really good memory, so what I'd do is I'd remember it, because I didn't have the script. So I'd go home and I'd write it down just from memory, and then what I didn't remember, I would write myself. And little by little, those scenes, the stuff I'd write myself get longer and longer and longer. And I'd do a scene from Marty or something in Petty Chayefsky's thing, and then all of a sudden I'd have these big long monologues that have nothing to do with Marty, that just I'm writing in there.
So the thing about Reservoir Dogs that's also rather amazing is that there are many lead characters. There's not really. I mean, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's no real star. Harvey Keitel is like the glue pot, more or less, that holds all the guys together.
And he kind of holds some of the themes of the movie.
He holds the themes together in the movie, definitely. He's like the linchpin that everything is built around. And it was the same thing as far as casting the movie was concerned. Harvey was the only actor that we had when we started. All right. And everyone else came in, and no one else was just given a part. Everybody else came in red, and they came in, and I had my my pick, the cream of the crop in both New York and Los Angeles of great actors, because they all responded to the material very well. I was very lucky. And they came in, And I saw a bunch of people, but it was great because I was just trying to collect just the right collection of guys. Everyone had to be a little different. They had to have different speech patterns, different looks, different attitudes, even different acting styles. They all come from different schools of acting, more or less. Michael Madsen is kind of a very naturalistic actor.
He was in Thelma and Louise.
He's in Thelma and Louise, yeah,
right.
and The Doors, and
mm-hmm.
and also a Val Kilmer movie called Kill Me Again that actually did pretty well out here. And Tim Roth is comes from the British stage. Steve Buscemi, who's in the movie Parting Glances and Jim Jarmusch's film Mystery Train,
mm-hmm.
he comes from the underground school of New York theater.
And he ended up taking the part that you originally wrote for yourself.
Yes, correctly. And he did a great job.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine anybody but him playing the part now.
But that's another one of those. I mean, it's a character that I mean, he's integral to the plot, I suppose. But
mm-hmm.
but it seems that what's most profound about him is the sense of character, rather than
mm-hmm.
what he does in terms of a MacGuffin of moving the plot along.
Oh right, yeah. Well, it's funny because it's funny as opposed to a lot of characters in a lot of movies. The characters don't necessarily move. The characters don't really manipulate the plot. I mean, they do in some ways, but not in the movie that we're watching. In what happened beforehand
mm-hmm.
that we never see. All right, Mr. Blonde definitely. And I don't want to say how because you got to see the movie, but he definitely kind of sets things on a bad note there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Their situation. But the thing about the movie is the characters don't necessarily manipulate the plot. The plot manipulates them.
Mm-hmm.
Things just keep happening that they have to deal with. They don't change their circumstances. They just have to deal with a new thing thrown at them.
That's a great concept.
Oh, it was fun.
What I mean, are there other films that you think work along that concept? When you're a big fan of movies, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is a movie that was made by somebody who loves movies. That's the thing.
I would like people to walk away from that and thinking that, because that's I do, and I've never considered this movie a film. I consider it a movie.
But are there other movies that are sort of touchstones for you? I mean,
well, there's a lot. There's a whole lot. There's all kinds of directors that are that I'm big fans of. Brian De Palma, Sergio Leone. But to tell you the truth, as far as and there's a French director named Jean-Pierre Melville who did a whole series of crime films in the 50s and in the early 60s. Les Samurai, Bob les Flammes Bleues,
mm-hmm.
that to me they reinvented the genre, all right, the gangster film genre, and that's what I was kind of going for in this. But if I was going to pick one movie that actually I kind of use as somewhat of an inspiration as far as what they achieved in their movie that I like to achieve in mine, is John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. Because actually, it's very similar to my movie. If you look at it, the effects, it's about a bunch of guys trapped in one place that they can't leave, and then they're in a situation where no one can trust anybody else. And when I went and saw that in the theaters, the tension, the paranoia, and the claustrophobia that those guys were feeling went from the screen right out into the audience. And that's what I wanted to achieve in this movie.
That's a Carpenter thing. The idea.
Assault on Precinct 13. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the Prince of Darkness.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah. Prince of Darkness too. Yeah.
Groups of people sort of caught in having to deal with the external circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
It's in some ways, it's like a play in,
mm-hmm.
in some ways because a lot of the action takes place in one space, which is
mm-hmm.
where
right, exactly.
I don't know if we've mentioned yet, but it's the story of a jewel heist that goes wrong.
Correct.
Okay, everything gets screwed up,
uh-huh.
and it becomes clear that somebody. Or there's a suspicion, even
mm-hmm.
this is not clear. Yeah. There's a suspicion, the paranoia perhaps,
right.
that somebody within the group has betrayed the other members
has
of the
betrayed
group.
them. You never see the robbery, all right? It takes place in the aftermath. This movie starts where every other movie ends, all right? Where it's spent 10 minutes on, It's like it takes all place at the rendezvous after the robbery. And it's like, all you know as an audience member is, the robbery's gone bad and the guys are one by one showing up at the rendezvous, all right? And some are, some are walking through the door, some are showing up shot, all right? Some aren't showing up at all, which is freaking the guys out who are there, and it's just one by one they're coming through the door, and each has a slightly different interpretation of what happened, all right? And you kind of, as an audience member, you kind of buy each one as they go in, but you don't really know. You're just kind of trying to piece it together. What the deal is, because to me the robbery is like the least important part. It's like dealing with this situation
and the psychological situation too.
Yeah.
Like what do we do now, and who betrayed us?
Right, exactly.
Who do we exact revenge from?
Yeah, exactly. All you find out is like this. Well, the cops were there pretty quick, man. Somebody must have somebody must have tipped them off and set us up. And then are there cops on their way here now? Well, what do we do? Well, we got this guy who shot up. What do we do with him? So it's all these conflicting things.